And joining me now is David DeBatto, retired US Army counterintelligence officer and geopolitical analyst. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, I want to start with the country's President Pezeshkian apologising to the Gulf nations, saying, look, neighbouring states will no longer be struck if they are not hitting Iran. But then we're also hearing reports from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, as we go to air tonight, that they've been hit today. So is the president of Iran really speaking for the leadership?
I believe that he is, but look, let me just say there's been a lot of discussion about why Iran may have been hitting its Gulf neighbors and whether or not this was a mistake, whether or not this was a strategy of theirs. And I've actually spoken about this, and I think that it was a strategy. I think they're taking a page out of the Russian and even the Soviet playbook, which is to plant chaos, to seed the area in chaos. It's also payback for the Gulf states, as far as Iran is concerned, for helping Israel, for siding with some of them, actually opening diplomatic relations with Israel, and for hosting several American military bases. So I think it's a strategy of theirs. Now, whether or not that was a wise strategy in the long term, well, remains to be seen. But yes, I think this was a strategy. I think he does speak for the leadership. And I think we're going to see those wind down, though, very, very soon, if not right away.
So you do think they will wind down? Because that was going to be my next question, as to whether or not those armed forces actually listen and rein it in, because it seems the president is wanting to find a compromise. So I'm curious as to whether or not those around him really will be convinced to follow that lead.
Well, let me just answer that in this way. A lot of people don't realize, that don't study this for a living or aren't that interested, that the Iranian military and even the Ayatollahs don't totally control Iran. They are not the power structure in Iran. That's the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They are a paramilitary force behind the force. They actually have far more weapons and far more control over what Iran does than even the Ayatollahs. So a lot of this may be their call. So whether or not the president speaks for them, that I can't say. And whether or not these strikes do ramp up in the future and don't die out, as I think they will, it really depends on what happens in the next few days in terms of Israel and the United States, how they proceed in their attacks against Iran.
So this could end up in a bit of a split between the regime, let's say the president, and the military corps.
Oh, absolutely. Look, the IRGC is the power, as I said, in Iran, and they are the most devout, the most hard-line folks in Iran. They call the shots. They don't just control the military or the intelligence services. They control the infrastructure. They control the finances. They control pretty much every facet of Iranian life, education, and so forth. So they are going to be the ones to not only call the next shots, probably the ones that are going to approve the next leader, the political leader of Iran. And depending on who that is, that will show which way this war goes. What is Iran going to do as far as their strategy with the new leader, and how much power the IRGC can carve out with the new regime?
So Donald Trump again calling for an unconditional surrender. Given what you mentioned just there, I mean, can change truly happen in Iran without America deploying some kind of troops on the ground? Or is that the role that the United States is hoping will be played by Kurdish forces backed by the CIA?
Well, let me just say this, and it's been said by many, many people, not just me. Continuing airstrikes and air power alone are not going to result in regime change. As I said, the IRC is the folks that really do control what's going on the ground in a country of 93 million people. The Americans and the Israelis can absolutely pulverize every military installation in Iran, all of the missile sites, all of the air bases, all of the military bases, and they still will not control what's going on the ground. The IRGC, they control the country. They control every street corner. They control every agency and government facility in Iran. They are going to control the country, whether or not Israel or America keeps the air campaign up. So To answer the question that you asked, though, is Trump going to order ground troops into Iran? If he wants to truly affect regime change, then he's going to have to do that. And I don't think I know the American people aren't up for that. He may start by putting in some special forces to take over some key agencies and try to force it that way, which won't work. And then he may consider opening it up to a larger number of ground forces, which, in my opinion, would be a complete diplomatic and military disaster, to be honest with you.
Now, we're also hearing Iran getting help intelligence-wise, and given your experience, I want to ask you about that from Russia, its ally. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth have both downplayed these reports, but why do you think they are giving Russia somewhat of a free ride?
Well, I'm sorry. I have to say that I don't really I take with a grain of salt, rather, what Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump say. I think behind the scenes, they are extremely worried. Having Russia use their satellite system, using their intelligence assets to aid Iran in locating and targeting American forces, it's a very bad thing. So no, they're not happy. And as far as them brushing it off, that's for public consumption. Behind the scenes, it's a mess right now. They are very, very concerned. And after all, why would Russia do this? Many reasons. It's payback for what America's done in Ukraine. The Americans, have provided Ukraine with our intelligence assets for many, many years. And so now Russia's doing the same thing with Iran. And also, with Russia, it's a matter of keeping an ally, keeping their word to an ally, and not losing total control over the Gulf and the allies and support they've built up over the years. They're about ready to lose all of their influence in this region, and they're going to do a lot of things to try to hold on to that influence.
So tell me then, why does the White House publicly eviscerate anyone who seems to step out against the United States? But when it's Russia, there appears to be this contrition, this hesitancy to act. I mean, this is both in Ukraine, obviously now in Iran.
Well, it's a question that everyone's been asking in this country and overseas since Donald Trump has assumed office the second time last year in January. And my professional opinion is that there's two reasons for that. One, Donald Trump seriously does like Vladimir Putin. He likes him, he idolizes him, and he has that same affection for all dictators. The second reason is, and I do believe this, that the Russians do have something on Donald Trump. I do believe that. I know that's been conspiracy theories, but a lot of the conspiracy theories about Donald Trump have in the recent weeks and months come true. I feel there is leverage, there's compromise over Donald Trump by the Kremlin. He's just done too many things since he's taken office to lead one not to believe that. This war in Iran is another reason. Just as you're saying, why is he brushing it off? Why is he just doing this when the Russians are helping his enemy, the Iranians, for whom he's just demanded an unconditional surrender? But yet the Russians can help target American assets in the area, and it's no big deal. I happen to think that the Kremlin's got something on them.
David DeBatto, retired US Army counterintelligence officer and geopolitical analyst. Thank you as always for your time.
You bet.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Dahmen. Good night.